welcome for the final edition of the KOKOLIRIKO live show for this week. And today is a Friday. The date is the 27th of the month of September. Counting down 3 days to the end of the month. And that means we are going to be ending the September month. And thereafter, October will be coming in. These are the Mba months, as you usually say. And definitely, when you get to know these months already around the corner, that should be an indication that the year surely has come to an end. And today, as Ugandans as well, we must also really cherish this day, because today being the 27th of the month of September, I must say we are celebrating the World Tourism Day. This is a global activity which we are celebrating today to honor and also really promote and shine light in some of the potential tourism sites we have in the country. And as a country, I must assure you that we have quite many of potential tourism opportunities, and all this is spread wide across the entire country. And that's why Uganda is actually called the Pearl of Africa, and that's because of some of the very many geographical features which are also really attracting tourists. And today you realize that tourism is actually one of those sectors bringing in a lot of money for this country. And today, when you look at the World Tourism Day, it is actually celebrated every year on this day, which is the 27th of September, to shine a spotlight that is on the global significance of tourism in the world. And that's why today I want to say, as tourism, we celebrate a lot. We have a lot that we need to celebrate when it comes to the tourism sector. And the day emphasizes what we call tourism ability to unite people, boost the economy, and foster cultural exchange. And today you realize that a lot more is happening just because of the connection from tourism. And when you look at the world, celebrating World Tourism Day, you will realize that a lot is happening. That's where we need to also really ensure that we talk about the issues pertaining tourism in there, and that's where we are going to be looking at some of those issues. And I want to assure you that as World Celebrates Tourism Day, a lot more is going to be happening. And I want to assure you that we have very many potential tourism sites in West Nile sub-region. You look at very many parts of West Nile sub-region, you realize that we have potential tourism sites, but as a region, we are not very much benefiting from those potential tourism sites. It means there's something that we need to do. Yesterday, we had officials from Ministry of Sports and National Council really touring Stadium. You look at that facility in Leju. We did have Minister for Sports, that's Ogwang, who was actually touring the facility together with other officials to also really see how the works are progressing. And this is already a potential tourism site. Looking at that facility, many people from other parts of Western sub-region, or what we call under domestic tourism, when there will be games in here, they will be forced to come and see how the stadium looks like. It means we as people of Western sub-region, we must first of all be proud of what we hold, what we have, and why we are holding certain facilities. And this is where we need to also really be proud of where we are coming from. Because sometimes you realize some point in West Nile, but they feel they needed to be somewhere. They did not want to maybe be as West Nile sub-region. And that is where you find names like so and so coming up. You find people being called so and so. But you're saying all in all, people should be able to really learn certain things that as a West Niler, you are West Niler. If you're Northerner, you're Northerner. If you're Muganda, you're Muganda. If you're Musoga, you're Musoga. And it is not by choice. It is by the choice and by the will of God that you belong to certain tribes. And that is where we need to hold what we call cultural tourism, because we have tourism in very many spheres. And that is where the aspect of cultural tourism comes in place. We must honor our dances. You look at the dances of the Lurunde and Dara, you realize that these are quite interesting, and this could actually attract very many people as tourists. Let's embrace that. Why don't we channel our resources towards that? Looking at the facilities, you look at right away from Pakwach, this is a potential tourism site. You look at the lake, you look at the rivers, you look at the bridge, all that is a potential tourism site. Looking at the lakes, people are there. Would not also really maybe know that these are potential tourism. Let's market those facilities and move up to Adjumani. River Nile is there. These are all potential tourism sites. Looking at the Bongi Ferry, all of these are potential tourism facilities. Why don't we then be proud? First of all, tell the world that, look, I'm a West Niler and this is what we have. You have to visit this. You have the benefit of that. Then it means at the end of the day, people are going to be attracted to some of these facilities. Look at the Jai Game Reserve in Madiokolo. As I already said, we have these potential tourism sites well spread across the entire West Nile sub-region. I can mean to go district by district and tell you at least that this is a potential tourism site for this district, and this is the amount it will be able to sort of bring for these districts if at all we well map this. And these are facilities which I feel the tourism officers must also work hand in hand with the rest of the leaders to make sure that West Nile sub-region has the potential tourism sites mapped. This goes back to our members of parliament who to also make sure that at least we need to also ensure that the tourism sites in West Nile sub-region are not wasted. Looking at facilities like Ajay Game Reserve Madiokolo, this would actually attract millions and millions of people to also come and see what is happening in there, what kind of animals are in there, what kind of tree species are there. But I want to say today, I want to thank the government, which is also trying to make sure that they revive Ajay Game Reserve. Recently, we did see animals being brought, and today I would also be interested to see how many animals are being brought in there, and that will exactly paint us an image of how many people are also out there. And that would also tell us how exactly what will be happening in there. And I want to assure you that all this will be happening, and we want to also ensure that all this happens and to make sure that people understand why they need to do certain things the way they must be done. Because if you look at tourism, you move to Marasa district, we have Mirador Falls. You move to Terego, that Leju Stadium is now becoming a tourism site, additional to Mountain Wati. And not only that, we have quite many in there. Really, all this should be able to bring money for the West Nile sub-region in terms of foreign exchange. Because if you look at tourism, today I want to assure you that it brings a lot of money for this country. And that is where we would be interested in wanting to see how many Ugandans. Remember, there are so many opportunities lying in there, because if you look at the tourism, you realize that there are a lot of opportunities lying in there, both directly and indirectly. We have officials who are today employed under the hospitality and tourism sector, and the leisure sector. These are earning a lot of monies. This is money that also is solid. Today we have that whole course in some of the universities which people are studying, and once they come out, hardly do they get the jobs. They are getting the jobs with ease, because tourism is actually where the world is heading to. Because if you look at the money that tourism is bringing for this country, you will realize that there's a lot of money that tourism is actually bringing. And the World Tourism Day began with special, what we call, assembly in Mexico on the same date, which is of today, 27th of September, in the year 1970. That's when we started celebrating this day right away from Mexico. And today the day has continued to be honored worldly, and we hope at the end of the day the two potential tourism sites across the country can actually be able to slowly attract more foreigners to actually come and visit some of the facilities that we have in this country, right away from also Uganda. We have to see our facilities in Bunyoro, we have to come and see some facilities in West Nile, we have to come and see facilities in Eastern, because these facilities are widely spread. Because if you look at Eastern, you realize that the ginger belt is there to also make sure many tourists come, and that is actually where we're seeing very many tourists being attracted. You move to first Fort Portal, the Maberega, Nyinamiru, the Sempire Hot Springs, all these are in the country, and very many people are today visiting these facilities to come and see what these facilities are all about. I had a chance of touring while way back in school to Western Uganda, and one of my surprises was visiting one of the hot springs where egg was being boiled, where the pot had just come with their eggs and put in water, and it was boiling, and I was quite amazed, quite surprised. It means these facilities have to be well protected, have to be well mapped, and have to be well honored. As citizens, we must be proud that, yes, indeed, as a country, we have been blessed with this and that. And we must tell the world that, look, this is what we have, and this is what exactly you need to visit us for. And at the end of the day, these are the benefits. And remember, without peace, because this year's Tourism Day talks about tourism and peace is the theme for this year. And you realize that also without peace, we are not going to be attracting the tourists that we want to attract in this nation, because you realize many people will not also want to visit a place that is also of insecurity. Really, we had ugly scenarios where some tourists were way back attacked. That is already at some of the game parks, which sent a bad precedent. And we hope also all this does not happen, because this is going to push away very many potential visitors. Because if a country is without peace, and that's where we need to also ensure that the issues of ADF, the issues of theft, we don't want to see armed robbers, also the gang rapping, also the tourists, and that would also send a bad signal to these tourists who may be coming from places which are a bit peaceful, and that would also send a signal that do not visit this country because there is no peace. And remember this year's theme, which talks about tourism and peace. I want to say the two must be moving hand in hand. And for a nation to be without peace, however much beautiful your places are, trust me, people are not going to be visiting you, and people are not going to be visiting your facilities. And that is where we are not going to be seeing people being attracted to come and see how our dances are, to come and see how we dress, to come and see the kind of foods, come and see our cultures. Because sometimes people come just because they want to come and see our cultures. And that is where sometimes we have tourists who visit Karamoja, who visit West Nile sub-region, who visit Lango, who visit Bunyoro, who visit Ankole, who visit Teso, who visit all the places to just come and see how these people's cultures are faring. And that means we must also be proud of our cultures. And once the people come, let's show them our abilities. I really like what's happening at Jai Game Reserve, because the facility is going to be having a cultural center where people's cultures, the Madi culture is going to be protected. And I hope all that will be bringing money for the district and for the region at large, because some of these tourists may not want to sleep in Madokolo, but they will opt to sleep in a rural city and visit these facilities. It means the money is not going to be coming only from Madokolo district, but the entire West Nile sub-region. And that's where we're going to be taking a short commercial break. And we hope also you still keep it with us until 9 o'clock. This is still KOKOLIRIKO Live Show with me, Farish Majid, and our final destination remains 9 o'clock. And it's a Friday. I want to say the excitement is always real, because on Fridays like this, people know that then the weekend is around the corner. Definitely they are going to be celebrating, but I want to also assure you that we must celebrate responsibly. We take a short commercial break. We bounce back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, I hope you had a busy week and a good one as well. Now that the week is ending, today is Friday, and many people could actually be out there asking, what am I going to be doing over the weekend? I'm not prepared for the weekend. But I want to say in Arua City, the weekend actually starts on Thursday. And I was able to move, seeing some of the places being well lit, and I was asking, what is really happening? And the border guy was actually able to tell me that the weekend has started. I didn't know that weekend starts on Thursday, but in Arua City, I want to assure you that weekend actually starts on Thursday, where we are able to see people already dancing, people drinking, people doing what. But you're saying the weekend actually starts on Friday, and Friday is a working day. And really, how are you going to be maybe moving on Friday, yet you had a long Thursday? These are questions really where sometimes people have to answer, and I hope really, as we celebrate this Tourism Day, you have to move to some of these places and see what is happening. And it is actually by choice. You can choose to visit the mosques, you can choose to visit the club and see what is happening. And all that is what you maybe ought to celebrate the Tourism Day with. Because if you look at the World Tourism Day, earlier on I was talking about it, it is one of those important days. And you realize that today very many people are employed both directly and indirectly under the tourism sector. Look at how many people are earning money from Pakwach just because people visit that facility to come and see what is happening. And this is where we have to also honor tourism as an activity, and as an activity also generating money for this country. And that is where you will be able to already see how many people are being employed in the tourism sector. For instance, look at the drivers, look at the instructors, look at the tour guides, look at the UA officials, and all this are within the tourism sector. And that is where we need to also honor and also honor their activities as we also celebrate this day, because sometimes this will go through a lot where they have to be threatened by wild animals, they have to be done what? All that is a reason as to why we must also celebrate those officials who are involved within the chain of tourism. And I hope at the end of the day, that is where we are going to be seeing all this happening. And that's where, at the end of the day, as a country, Uganda, we will be able to slowly see how many and maybe how much money is being earned for tourism in this country. And you know that Uganda is actually generating a lot of money when it comes to also the tourism in there. And tourism has so many importances. And you know that a lot of importances are actually being surrounded by tourism. One, employment sector, then exchange of culture, and that's where people are being employed. Then exchange of culture, you will be able to see how Analuru behaves. Ekakwa will move to Madi and see how Madi behaves. Ekebu, I will be moving to Madi sub-region and see how the Aulogos do their things. And they relate quite well. And really, I want to say that is the kind of motive we must promote. Recently, we were able to see the Culture Day in Obongi, which was also something which we did see happening in there. We were able to see how many people were brought together. Different cultures coming together, and I want to say that is actually what we want to see, and that's what we have to promote as people of Northern Uganda, as people of West Nile sub-region at large. And that is where I hope, at the end of the day, when we sit down and we reflect back and say, yes, this is what we appreciate, much as we have differences here and there, but that is where we had to also, maybe we didn't ever call for, but we were able to slowly see Uganda also doing that, and we have to promote these activities, and that is where we have to also support some of these organizations and some of these cultural institutions like the Lubarakari, Aluga, and also the Aringa Kingdom, very many others. We have to support them, not forgetting the kingdoms that we have in place from the Madi and Aluru. And this is where, at the end of the day, many young people will also be able to slowly see how tourism can actually be promoted and how their cultures will be preserved for future generations. And I'm really imagining a scenario where Uganda is not also promoting some of this cultural tourism in there. And at the end of the day, we shall be seeing degeneration of the cultures. And that's where we are going to be leaving that discussion aside with and look at some of the stories happening elsewhere as we are running out of time. Remember, so many issues continue to happen. And really, yesterday we did see appointment of acting executive director for Kampala Capital City Authority, and the man in the names of Rusa is actually going to be the one steering Kampala for the next 90 days, as they also really look for a person maybe who will be suitable to also take over the position right away from in there. And really many people have not been anticipating this. Just this follows after days after the sacking of three officials, and these are the top officials with Kampala Capital City Authority, over negligence in relation to what happened in Chitezi, where many people lost lives. Is it a good move? And does this man have the capacity? And do you think he will be able to steer Kampala Capital City Authority in a better way than the predecessors? Because if you look at some of the leaders, you realize that some of the leaders actually did a tremendous job right at the helm of Kampala Capital City Authority India. Now the Office of the President has also appointed a lawyer in the names of Frank Nyakana Rusa as the interim also executive director, that's of Kampala Capital City Authority, following the dismissal of Dorothy Tsaka, who has been the executive director in there. Now the authority's legal director was announced also alongside two other temporary appointees, a sign that is also in place of dismissed Kampala Capital City Authority, that's deputy director, that is engineer David Luimbazi, and Kampala Capital City Authority director, that's of public health, that's Dr. Daniel Okello in there. And now KCA's director for revenue collection, Robert Nowera, also is assigned the duties of Luimbazi, while acting deputy director of public health is Sarah Zarango Keren, as they three also take over the responsibilities from the three who got fired in there. And really, what will be your message and what will be your advice for these people who are taking over the positions from a time where their predecessors got sacked? It's really quite interesting, and I hope at the end of the day there's a message and there's a signal that you have to send them, and so that slowly they can be able to slowly pick certain issues and work on. And these are issues I feel could be as loopholes and could be also really gaps that needed to be addressed, and all that also really will be addressed under what we are going to be looking at. Now the assignment, which is also take immediate effect, we'll see the appointees also really hold positions until substantive office holders are named. And that means for the next days, they will be the bosses. And for now, we are going to be calling them the bosses also as they take over the positions. And now the 4-year KCA boss Saka, Luimbazi and Okello, we are asked following also the incident that happened in Stacey, remember, and also the incident left very many people dead in there. Now speaking a day after his termination, Luimbazi accused the Inspectorate of Government for Corruption, alleging that their dismissal was ill-motivated. Did they do their tasks? Do they perform to their abilities? And do you think indeed that was corruption? And this matter is actually being investigated. And we hope at the end of the day, the investigation solely will either prove them innocent or guilty, because according to them, they were handcuffed over resource issues. This is why they did not also really address some of the issues that happened in Chitezi, despite the several warnings from different leaders. According to them, they say that they were handcuffed because of the resource envelope, which was a bit meager to also address some of those issues and avoid those challenges also really for them to also really perform to the best of their abilities. And is it right? And what do you think about all these issues, right away from the issues of the sacking and then the allegations of resource envelope? Is it that Kampala Capital City Authority did not allocate enough money for these people to do their jobs? These are issues that we need to investigate, because this is where at the end of the day you either say somebody was maybe somebody was dismissed fairly or unfairly. The decision is entirely in your hands, and that is where we are now going to be seeing Rusa's responsibility will oversee, including overseeing the delivery of quality services within Uganda, and that's solely where we shall be seeing also promoting order and trade order in the city. If you look at the issues of trade order today, we have a whole court of the Arua City Magistrate Court, which is sitting at Arua Hill, and I want to say I'm quite impressed. We recently, where I did work also in there, you realize that a lot of the cases are now being addressed in there, where the matters have to be disposed in there, and then whether you also commit crimes. So long as these are crimes that do not also really exceed 20 millions. This is quite interesting, and do not maybe also consume my money in a corrupt way, because I will drag you there, and after a day, you will be in yellow. So avoid eating post money, because the person can tend to drag you in there, and at the end of the day, you will be sentenced there and then, without first of all being remanded. And that means people must also really change their behaviors, and they must also do things within the law. And that is where we shall be seeing them also really very much also really doing very good job in there. And that is where also when we talk about the issues also really happening in the camp of KCA, you will realize that many people have also actually been talking about the sacking of Saka, with many saying it was just a matter of time. And indeed, was it a matter of time? Very many people still could be sharing divergent opinions. and different also thoughts when it comes to these issues in here. Now, the sacking also of Dorothy Tsaka as executive director of the Kampala Capital City Authority was not also a surprise to many Ugandans, and with critics saying that it only had to be a matter of time, with many also anticipating. And as the viewer, did you indeed also anticipate, or we are surprised? Because many are saying they had anticipated this and they were only waiting for the time. Is it indeed? Is it true? And that is where also we shall be seeking for your thoughts and opinions, and also address some of these issues, because there's a lesson the rest of the newly created cities should be able to pick from Kampala Capital City Authority management. Because if you look at the issues of garbage, many times when you interact with these mayors, when you interact with also the different division leaders, you realize that the issue of garbage is indeed trouble. Indeed, it is it's a huge task where we have to support the leadership when it comes to these issues. But if at all we're not supporting the leaders, when it comes to these issues pertaining the garbage disposal, the garbage management, then you realize that there's a lot more that will be done when it comes to addressing that issue in there. But we hope at the end of the day, justice will be able to prevail for those officials who also really might have had issues when it comes to garbage management in there. That's where we are going to be leaving the story about KC aside and look at some of the stories as we're running out of time. Remember, it being a Friday, we are definitely getting closer to the weekend, and on a weekend like this, where we are going to be having members of parliament also really camping in Arua City, playing several games already in there, and we are going to be also interacting with them today, and I hope at the end of the day, they will be telling us why they are here and what they expect. And if you look at World Tourism Day, what are their plans to also really make some of those sports facilities potential tourism sites? Look at Greenlight Stadium, potential tourism site because of the name on the Baraka Football Club, where today many people want to come and see where the team that was performing magic was playing. And many of the stars today are also in the country being also from these clubs. And that means people will want to come and see some of the sides that have been promoting talent. Look at the Royal Sports Club, looking at also some of the stadium also has left in there. And all this are potential tourism sites. It means we, as the people of this place, we must love this. We must be proud. And when these MPs come, we must tell them to also allocate resources so that more stadiums can be built. Look at Dokas Nchikuru Stadium in Barifa. This is where we need to have a stadium also that will be able to attract very many people, because if you look at sports tourism, because you realize that it's also one of those sectors that could be bringing a lot of money for this country today. You realize that many people are moving to Europe to just see the stadiums, to go and see how the players are doing. And somebody sees Ronaldo playing and the person is excited. That is exactly what sports tourism is all about. People go to Old Trafford and take photos outside. People go to Emirates and take photos outside. It means that is potential tourism sites. So as well as in Western Sub-region, if at all we developed also our facilities, we never know. Many people will be coming from Europe to come and see how the stadiums look like. And you look at also how Europeans do their things. So I think as Africans, sports tourism is actually another area where we need to also give serious attention to. And today we shall be expecting the members of parliament also to arrive at Greenlight Stadium, where they will be playing games. And one of those games will actually be also alongside the media team. So if you see me playing for media, and that definitely also must also tell you that we are going to be beating the members of parliament, and we hope also to watch them also. And that's where we also need to ask you, the viewer, to come and support either the members of parliament or support us, the media team. And that is where we shall be having a game with them tomorrow. And they will also be having a game also, I do understand, with the fans of the Baraka Football Club. And I hope that is where our own also will be playing and also tying the armband. And that's where we shall be following up on all these games. And we want to also see these games end successfully. And at the end of the day, somebody may be asking, what are these games bringing on table? Is there any importance attached? Yes, I want to say there's quite a lot. These MPs play a great role, and I want to say it is actually not their duty to build the stadiums, but it is their duty to actually advocate for some of the facilities to be built. And once these MPs come here and also look at also the potential sports development, and they go back and prioritize on that, trust me, government will have to do nothing but allocate resources to build some of these stadiums. And remember, Uganda is also fronting to also host the 2027 AFCON also in India, and that definitely also could be an indication that we would also wish to see one of those stadiums be built in northern Uganda, be built in Western Sub-region. I do understand that actually Sub-region also will be holding one, and Western Sub-region would also be privileged to also hold one. But I want to say yesterday, officials from Ministry of Sports and National Sports Council were able to also traverse Leju Stadium in that's in Terego district, which is one of the facilities which I must say is going to be a magnificent one. For one who has not seen it, you definitely have to also give interest to see how Terego is doing it. And I want to say it is actually one of those activities which other local governments also should be able to pick lessons from, because if Terego, a young district, can be able to do that, then it means that the mother and the bigger districts can actually do that. We would want to say also really districts like Madiokolo building, and I don't understand they have plans. We have to see districts like Maracha also building, because at the end of the day, the stadiums are going to be creating what we call opportunities for the young ones to explore and develop their talents. Sometimes we have this talent, but there's nowhere to also nurture this talent. So developing such facilities would actually build the confidence of the young ones, because last time, some few days ago, the minister, the president for FIFA, president, that's the engineer Moses Magogo, was here. He actually talked about how we are identifying talent very late. You realize that somebody is now shining, but the person's age has gone. The person is about 30, but the person claims is 25. The person is 40 years, is 17 years. So all this has an implication when it comes to nurturing talent. So identifying this talent right from childhood would actually be very much good. And that's where he actually asked on people to ensure nurturing talent of the young ones at a tender age in there. And that is where developing such facilities would actually bring in new academies. And in these academies, we would see our young ones, our siblings already developing their talent and identifying the kind of talent for people also to identify what they do have in there. And remember, this is a lifelong skill, and it's skill training which we must also really promote in there. And that is also really where at the end of the day, we will be able to sort of see people also really identifying their talents. And that is where we need to sort of support government when it comes to sort of identifying this talent in. And now the Ministry of Education and Sports has called on the educational institutions to prioritize life skills training. That is sort of to promote also and develop the learners due to also what we call the outcomes. If you really look at some of these issues in the schools, if we develop talent, if we develop skills, then at the end of the day, we will be able to sort of see people earning from these skills for life. Look at somebody who is also going to be trained as a footballer. Many of times from playing active football, we see them ending as coaches, as people who are still involved within the sports sector. So I think it's quite important for us to sort of develop some of these lifelong skills right from the schools, and the teachers plus the games masters have a big task also when it comes to making this a reality. And this remark was already made while speaking at a symposium for adolescents and girls. Education in Crisis, also the initiative, also a project held in Kampala on September 25th, where Ms. Angela Nansubuga, the program assistant that is already for finance administration at the Ministry of Education and Sports, emphasized also the importance of the skills in unlocking the full potential of the learners and adolescents at large in there. And that is where we also saying people must also really ensure identifying the skills which could be best going with these learners. Look at the schools. Today we have skills in agriculture under the new curriculum, which I want to say I had fears of, but today I can boldly say that this is actually one of the best curriculums that we were disadvantaged not to have. But the young ones now have the disadvantage of enjoying and also developing their talent also under this new curriculum. Imagine somebody getting skills in bakery. This is going to be for a lifetime. If at all the people also fail to get employment, maybe in other sectors, still, we will be able to see them be employed also by themselves, what we call self-employment. And we will be able to see people making mandazis, people make also the cakes, people, still they will be able to earn money for themselves, because at the end of the day, people have to eat. Look at somebody who is also going to pursue agriculture under this new curriculum. Once they come out, they already know what to do to bring them money. And some of the schools are already doing a tremendous job. And I want to say earlier on, I was able to sort of tour some of the schools. You realize that under this new curriculum, some of the learners are doing very well. I took a walk to Mvara Senior Secondary School where I was able to see learners planting cabbage, planting maize, quite interesting. And all that is also actually where we will be able to see them, first of all, get balanced diet for themselves, and they will also be able to get money if the schools sell this property, and the money goes back to them, and this would motivate many learners in undertaking agriculture. And I want to say the new curriculum, unlike the previous one, which was more of theory, this is what we call competence-based. And why is it called competence-based? Because it is practical in nature. Imagine somebody who is also going to be sitting for UNEB and sitting for UBDEB. This is quite interesting. And that means if at all I engage in carpentry, joinery under this curriculum, by the time I'm leaving school, I already have a skill that I'm living with. I'm not going to be living as somebody who's going to be knocking doors. Do you have vacancies? Do you want employment opportunities? Do you have this and that? Let me write up. You already know, you know what is happening. All you will have to do is to walk to some of these workshops and tell them that I did this under this new curriculum. Please, do you mind of giving me an opportunity to practice and develop my skills? It will be quite interesting. And I want to say this curriculum is actually going to be dropping down the rate of unemployment in this country. If you look at the unemployment opportunity, it has actually been high, where there has been a high rate of unemployment, most especially amongst the youths. But I want to show you that this curriculum is actually going to be addressing that, and this is also going to be dealing with that. And at the end of the day, we would also really want to see all these matters be addressed, and that would also really paint a good image of this country. And that's where we're going to be also leaving a story aside and look at some of the stories happening elsewhere. Remember, very many stories happening, as we are just left with 5 minutes to wind up with this hour in here. And in this hour, we are going to be also seeing a lot, and where we're going to be discussing very many pertinent issues with you. And that is where we would also really want to see the issues of Karuma also be talked about, because yesterday there was excitement as the Karuma Dam was officially commissioned by the head of state, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and that is also going to be adding up to the electricity we have in this country. If you look at Karuma also bridge, that definitely also is bringing a lot of money, and that's where we're going to be seeing the 6.2 trillion Karuma plant to finally also Jewish nation with 600 megawatts, and that is quite interesting, and it will produce up to 600 megawatts, as I said it, around to Jewish national grid, while running also itself on a separate 60 megawatts also of hydropower. And the facility located in Karuma Town Council, Chirango District, is said to be at ceilings 1.6 billion project, is supported also by a robust transmission network. And at the end of the day, we would also want to see the benefit of this electricity. And many people are actually asking, we are always talking about electricity, but how beneficial is this electricity to me as an ordinary citizen? Somebody out there could be asking this. How beneficial is this electricity to me as a citizen? I want to say it's quite important. You have an importance also of this electricity. First of all, when it comes to electricity, lighting facilities also is going to be improving on security, and that would also enhance the safety of the people who are going to be moving some of these facilities in there. Now, hydropower in Uganda's primary energy source, with the potential capacity, and we as a citizen and as a nation, we are mostly relying on hydropower other than solar and other forms of energy in there, because if you look at Karuma, that is where we are going to be seeing very many people be also employed, both directly and indirectly, just because of the electricity. Look at the saloons, look at the barbers who have been also complaining about electricity. Once we have national grid spread across the entire country, then this will be history. It will be history for us to also be talking about issues of power. Power will be history. It means people would be able to solely earn a lot of money for themselves, and people would be still interested in undertaking some of these activities. And that would also be a good one for us as a nation, and that would also definitely tell us a reason as to why we have to celebrate. Because look at the saloons. Our sisters who are doing hair combing need the power. Our brothers who are chopping off the hair need the power. Got the welders. They need the power, most especially to also do their work in there. And today we have people who are doing furniture, the carpenters who have machines also that require power, and those who are selling the juice, who are selling also really other activities that also need power to be preserved, definitely should be excited about this. It means as a country, definitely we are on the right track when it comes to issues of electricity, and we have to use electricity quite importantly in there. What is remaining, according to information from also most stakeholders, their complaints have always been on two aspects. First, the the issue of the costs. Many people are still saying electricity is still a bit high. That means government has to go back and revise on some of the tariffs that are being charged already per unit in there, because you cannot buy a unit at 1,000 Ugandan shillings, and that is what many people have also been complaining about. So it means the taxes that is being levied on the companies must be reduced so that the companies also can be able to drop on the prices for the final consumer to also afford in there. And then second, the issue of connectivity. Many people are saying to connect power is still quite expensive. They're finding it quite difficult to also really connect their houses to the electricity in there. But we are saying under the rural electrification program, we are seeing the prices already being dropped highly in there, where people just have to pay 54,000, and today you have yourself connected. It means we have to take advantage of some of these activities where you should be able to have power in your home in here. In this era, we do not expect people to use kerosene, or what we call the kerosene lights. We do not expect people to use that, because I don't know where you're going to be buying paraffin from in this era. And that is where people have to now adopt electricity. Let's buy, maybe if you cannot afford electricity, let's buy solar lights. Let's buy lights that are rechargeable, and that still requires electricity. And because in this era, I do not want to hear a story of somebody died because the person was using either a kerosene lamp or else candles, and that is really it's not quite impressive. So I think at the end of the day, that is where we need to also make sure that we change. Let's take advantage of that, and that's where we are going to be pausing with the discussions as we come to the end of the first hour. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West 90 with me, Farish Majid, and it's a Friday. Very many people are actually in there, must be warming up for the weekend. You would see people really yearning for the weekend, because the weekend is now around the corner, where many people are going to be celebrating it in different ways. But I want to say, let's celebrate responsibly, because there are a lot of issues out there. There are diseases, there are people also who are going to be grabbing our monies, there are thieves. At the end of the day, we risk our lives if at all we are going to be celebrating irresponsibly in there. We take a short commercial break. This is the KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477. That's on Star Times, and on 0073 on Zuku with me, Farish Majid. We get to you back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back to the short commercial break. We are 5 minutes after 8 o'clock, which is our second hour and final hour, of course, where we are going to be discussing a lot of pertinent issues with you here and there. And remember, you too still can be part of the discussions by dropping your comments on the comment section. For those of you watching us online via YouTube, via Facebook, feel free to drop your comments in there, and I will be able to sort of share with the rest of the viewers in there. And that will also, at the end of the day, shape the community, because as West Nile Television, our number one mandate remains, that is to enlighten the region, and definitely we are not going to be doing that alone. We have to do it shoulder by shoulder. Me and you have a role to play in terms of making that a reality, and that is where at the end of the day we have talked about issues that affect the community, because if you look at the issues affecting the community today, you realize that a lot more is happening, and that is where at the end of the day we need to solely address some of these issues. Yesterday we also had the budget conference for Central Division, where they were actually evaluating some of their budget solely to see maybe some of the gaps where they need to solely improve on. And I want to say that is an activity that did go on very well, where the Central Division actually seems to be on the right track. And that is where we also have to come out and appraise them, because if you look at the issues of revenue generations, Central Division is actually moving swiftly right away since they introduced the issues of a lot of issues. That's only where they did introduce a new format through also collecting taxes in there, and that is where today with the IRAS, it's actually doing magic for them. And that is one thing also at the end of the day, I feel other local governments who are still collecting money should be able to learn from, and that would also at the end of the day improve, that's on the revenue base for the different divisions and for the different local governments, and at the end of the day we will see development. So embracing the IRAS system is really what the other local governments must also really embrace on. Leaving that story aside really, and that's where we shall be having more details that coming in our subsequent news programs, and that is where we shall be getting the details of what exactly transpired in yesterday in there. But as we get move on, remember so many of the issues also really continue to happen in there, where sugarcane farmers, we are up in arms over what we call regular loan deductions by SCAUL is another story that we are able to see, where sugarcane farmers, also from Greater Mukono and management of Sugar Corporation of Uganda, which is abbreviated as SCAUL, are expected to also meet the Minister of State, that's solely for that's solely Minister of State, also in the office of the Vice President, Ms. Diana Mutasingwa, to resolve a long-lasting row between both the parties, and that is where at the end of the day, very many people today have been pushed off what we call agriculture, just because of the disparities in prices. And you realize that also deduction sometimes leaves the farmers at nothing but losses. Imagine a farmer who actually borrowed a lot of monies, but the deductions becoming irregular, and that is also where we are going to be seeing their profits solely being avoided, and that is where we would see many people be thrown out of the business. And now the raw emanates solely from loans offered by SCAUL, sugarcane growers, that's solely who couldn't manage terms and conditions set by commercial banks other than also the other institutions. And today you realize that the issue of borrowing has come out very much. Yesterday we were able to see the President, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, issuing a tough warning. That's the money lenders. It really means there's a lot more that we need to do. And in our opinion, should I say now as Uganda, are we ready for what we call Islamic banking? That is where I would see people operating without interest. Islamic banking is actually where many people have actually been having hope. That is also of beating, first of all, what we call the financial institutions. But are we ready for all that? Let's also look into that, because if you look at the issues of Islamic banking, where you will be able to return money which you have just borrowed. If you borrow, let's say, 100,000, you will return it as 100,000 without interest. Are we ready as a country for that? And that is where we would also see very many possible issues, because sometimes the money they borrow from also these financial institutions comes with a lot of interest, and that's where we see many possibly expressing dissatisfaction, and that's where we are seeing people also losing property, and at the end of the day we see people running to court to ask court to hold what we call court bailiffs taking over their properties. And so I think it means there's really a lot more that we need to solely encourage people to do, and that's solely where we want to solely see people learning from other people's experiences, and that would also be a good one for them to solely learn as a nation. And that's where we shall be seeing the farmers not only claim that SCA will retain all the paperwork pertaining the agreements. So how do you also hold the paperwork? How do I know my agreement with you? So I think SCA needs to come out and clearly explain the motive of holding the agreement. So I think at the end of the day, that would also be very key, and that would also address some of the issues. Now they further accuse the outgrowers with whom they have no credit obligations, Ms. Joyce Nabate, or that's also the sugarcane grower from Maokota village in Kaolo, which is also an area in Buikwe. And today, you know that area is actually where we are seeing very many people growing sugarcane. And we have so many people from Western sub-region who have been taken in there. And you look at the area surrounding Kaolo, we have so many people who are called the Kasambos. The Lubaras who are actually there to grow the sugarcane and also cut it in there. There are very many in there, but how can we be able to solely avoid that? Today you realize that many people out of the region have been moved, that is already for labor, cheap labor is already away from the region, and today many of them are actually in those places. But how can we make sure we bring them back? Looking at areas where they grow sugarcane, most of these areas always have people from this sub-region. Moving there, the names, you always hear names that are connected to this region. So it means there's something that we need to solely embark on. There's something we need to do. There's need for mindset change, that instead of going to practice agriculture in Bunyoro, in Buganda, you have to practice agriculture here. You have to grow the sugarcane here. You have to grow food scraps here. You can still do it. So I think at the end of the day, other than also at the end of the day crying for losses, you could still engage in other practices here. So I think at the end of the day, let's have that mindset changed. And that would also be able to solely improve on the livelihood, so we can be able to solely grow our region together in there. Now, Ms. Millie Naziwa, another farmer who also wants a scout to scrap the 13 million solely from her loan amortization, so come out to also complain about these issues, because if you look at all these issues, the farmers are also now complaining about accumulated funds. And then that means they have also already been accumulated and overwhelmed with the resources. So I think at the end of the day, there's something they need to do. That's sorry to address on some of these issues also happening in there. Now, leaving the story aside, still looking at some of the stories happening elsewhere, the Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, has directed schools on admission that's solely for new learners, and this is the nursing schools who have also already been given instructions. And now the First Lady, who also doubles as the Minister for Education and Sports, Janet Museveni, also directed health institutions to limit the number of students admitted into nursing and also the midwifery programs to address the overcrowding in the training institutions. And that's one thing also which at the end of the day, in my own opinion, is actually a good move. Because this is a practical lesson. This is a practical course, and if at all we are enrolling very many, how are these people going to be having access to some of the apparatus? Because if you look at some of the apparatus may not be enough. Looking at the equipment, it may not be enough. So admitting very many learners, in my own opinion, will not be quite well. Because look at the nursing schools and the clinical schools and midwifery schools. These play a great role. Looking at health, health is a critical aspect of life. Once we have quacks infiltrating that facility, infiltrating the industry, infiltrating the sector, then you risk losing lives. So I think giving proper training for these learners is actually quite well, and at the end of the day, that is where we need to solely ensure that the admissions are not overwhelming, and the numbers of people who are to be admitted must not also be very many in there. Now, speaking also at the release of the June 2024 results for nurses and midwives, Ms. Museveni emphasized that Uganda currently also 6 lakhs resources to expand or build enough hospitals to accommodate the growing numbers of trainees. So there you realize many of these learning institutions are producing graduates. Each and every time you realize there's a gradation from nursing schools. And where are these people going to? So I think there's really a lot more that government needs to also undertake on and embark on to make sure that these learners are actually accommodated in these facilities. But today you realize that most of these are actually being given opportunities to also volunteer in many of the health facilities in the country. And that's where today we are seeing them getting experience. But to accommodate them is also not lacking, because some of the health facilities are not enough. That brings me to the question, how many health facilities owned by government are within your divisions, are within your sub-counties, are within your districts? Some of the districts are actually lacking hospitals. Districts like Terego, there's no hospital in there. You move in there, there's no hospital. So what exactly does that mean to the numbers that are being produced each and every academic year? So I think it brings the question of accommodation. First of all, when it comes to employing these learners, and that's where today we are seeing very many clinics. We are seeing a lot of drug shops being run by the graduates who are also supporting government, because government will not be elsewhere to also support the learning institution. First of all, the health facilities. So I think it's quite important, and that's where today we are seeing very many people also really be employed within the sector. Leaving that sort aside, remember the DP is also in process of identifying candidates ahead of 2026, and that's where we are seeing now the DP bloc also is seeking for presidential candidate ahead of 2026 general elections. Now, members of the Democratic Party bloc have announced a search for frontliner. That's already for the coalition in the 2026 presidential elections. And on Thursday this week, which was yesterday, the DP bloc, also leaders, also led by Mike Mwabike, say the move also really followed disappointment after their alliance with the People Power, which also did not work out for them in there. And that's where we did the DP bloc, also, which was also a movement of the Democratic Party together with the DP, which did not also work in there. And on Thursday this week, we did see also who are now the DP bloc coming out to confirm that they are also on a search to also have a new leader also to represent him. Now, Mr. Mabike also revealed that the coalition is considering the idea of fronting former leader of opposition, that's Matthias Mpuga, as their leader. Also in the now the bloc members, also members also in the names of Samuel Lubega. Makaku was says to say that to address and also they are denouncing all these issues to make sure that what is happening within the political party also is quite well. And that brings us the question, as we are getting closer to 2026, we are counting down less than 15 months now. But how ready are we as a nation for the 2026 general elections? And what do you anticipate? What are you likely to see? But I want to say we must also start preparing now, because at the end of the day we may see human rights violations taking place which wouldn't be very much well in there. But we are saying all in all, people must also now start preparing for all these activities that will be coming also ahead of the year in there. That will also be quite well. And at the end of the day, people still will be identifying the names. Yesterday, we also for training. I want to say really out of the training, we were able to really realize that also we are likely to see a lot of issues happening where people also will be attacked in the elections. That means we have to also be able to also avoid all that. And that now the question is, how can we ensure a peaceful 2026 general elections? Somebody out there may be asking that, but we are saying all in all, that is where we are going to be keenly following up on. As journalists, we shall be keeping you updated, definitely, of what will be also happening during election times. We are going to be busy. I hope we are going to be busy during that time also to let you know of what will be transpiring and where exactly this also will be happening. And that's where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside and now to look at some of the stories happening elsewhere. A policeman also smuggled a teenage suspect out of cell. Really quite embarrassing to use this young girl. And remember, this girl what we were talking about was actually brought by the parents because she had disappeared from home, and a reason was she didn't want to go back to school. But when she was brought into the cell, a police officer had to also sneak this young girl, who is a 16-year-old, to his room. Quite embarrassing, unexpected, ironic at the same time. But what should be done to such police officers? Because the parents trusted you, and now the incident happened in Kamuli, where a police officer has now been arrested following defilement of a 16-year-old girl who also was in custody. Now, the police spokesperson Michael Kasada has said the victim also is a pupil of Kisozi Primary School in Namaganda Parish under Kisozi Sub-County in Kamuli District, who actually was used by the police officer whom we are talking about in here. Now, it's alleged that on the 9th of 6th September 2021, the victim's mother, in the names of Rehema Nabire, also took her to the victim's mother took also that to police, and this incident happened on the September 1st of this year, and that is where the man who also took advantage of this young girl, and after taking the girl into the cell at night, he used the girl the whole night. So the girl had to go back at home and narrate the ordeal of what exactly transpired in that night. So it's quite embarrassing. So it means people are going to be losing trust in some of the police officers. So I think retooling of the police officers is quite important, because sometimes really some of the sexual violences that are being, sexual abuses that are being committed by police officers is really alarming. This not only happened in Kamuli. At one time we also had a scenario where a police officer, also really under Ruhr Central Police Station, was also really arrested for such similar occurrences of defiling a young girl, and this issue had to actually reach out to court. And these are issues which I feel at the end of the day police officers shouldn't also really be able to engage in, because we expect it to be people who will protect us, the citizens, who will protect the law, who will also really quite embarrassing. So I think at the end of the day, police officers have to also check on their behaviors and have to also really check on how they are doing certain things. So at the end of the day, I really want to say all this would also really be painting a bad image of what exactly holds is also really within the police system. So I think at the end of the day, people are not going to be taking their children to police, and that would be very much bad for them. Now, leave that story aside. NGOs clash with URA over tax exemptions is another story that we're seeing right now, where a recent meeting also really between Uganda's non-governmental organizations and also really the Uganda Revenue Authority saw what we call heated discussions over the complexities with NGOs faced with tax exemptions and compliance. That is something we did see, where the dialogue also really aimed to address the long-standing issues such as delayed tax exemption processes, lack of clarity in tax and regulation, and also challenges in tax ledger reconciliations. And that's where we did see Xavier Joyi, the chairperson of Uganda National NGOs Forum, expressing frustrations where many NGOs also encounter, citing prolonged processes, lost documents, and inconsistent decisions across the URA departments. And that's where the people felt unfair. So they actually had to come out and call URA to also really ensure that these issues are addressed. And Mr. Joy also highlighted an example where an NGO faced what we call repeated applications. That's for tax exemptions, but we're not also really granted in there. That's also really where they want to import bicycles to serve communities, also really emphasizing how administrative delays hamper service delivery. So I think at the end of the day, if the issues of tax exemptions is not well looked into, we will be seeing also really people still encountering a lot of losses, and that's where we would see very many NGOs also facing challenges. Now in response, Ms. Dorothy Oroma, the supervisor of domestic taxes at URA, acknowledged the concerns, but also attributed some delays to NGOs' non-compliance. So as NGOs, as we are blaming government, let's also really ensure that we are compliant to the demands of URA. So I think at the end of the day, that's where we will be able to see people working hand in hand with URA in here. That's where we did see URA also stationed a dedicated team to streamline and also really address on some of the issues also really raised by the NGOs. And the NGOs raised concern about what we call complex tax ledger reconciliations, which have led to financial penalties. And Ms. Oroma also responded by outlining improvements to the ledger system, also really noting that a new simplified display would help NGOs better track on their records. Today you realize the issue of record tracking is actually facing and also affecting very many people, and many businesses are actually closing today just because of the issues of tax document keeping, what we call record keeping. So at the end of the day, when we ask people to also file at the records, you find the records are not adding up. At the end of the day, we see people paying taxes which they're not initially supposed to pay. People are paying money not even not estimated to the money they're supposed to pay. So at the end of the day, this issue also really brings a lot of issues amongst the NGOs and the government. It's not only within the NGOs, the other businesses also as well hit by this challenge. So at the end of the day, I want to say people have to address some of these issues where people have to keep the records keeping very well. If you buy certain things, make sure you keep the documents, you keep the records, so that when URA comes to also ask you to file your returns, you're in position to also do that without any problems in there. And that's where at the end of the day, people would also be able to be paid the money that they're supposed to pay in here. Now the dialogue, which also was attended by over 50 NGO leaders, marked a significant step towards resolving tax-related challenges, with both parties committing to ongoing engagements, and that's where we did see difficulty, where the issues, some of the issues that were raised include, among others, difficulty in obtaining tax subventions with what we call protracted processes and lost documents, delayed response from URA impacting NGO operations, complex ledger reconciliation leading to penalties, ambiguity in what we call tax legislation with inconsistent interpretations across the URA offices, and that is where we did see also the calls for more training and capacity building, also for NGOs also to understand tax requirements. And all these matters are actually there to ensure that people pay their taxes without problems. And that's where we also ask people to pay their taxes with ease. Because if at all you know what to do when it comes to paying taxes, we're not going to be seeing you engaging in running battles. We're not going to be seeing your companies close. And that is where we would be seeing many companies grow. But today, many of the companies have actually closed because of the issues of what we call filing returns. And the taxes at the end of the day become huge. Many people have to be forced out of that. That's where we see many people being thrown out as a result of the taxes. So I think at the end of the day, that is where it will be quite interesting, quite important for people to also look at some of those issues. And that's where we are going to be leaving the discussion aside, as we are just left with about 5 minutes to wind up with the half of this hour. And in the last half, we are going to be looking at some of the stories happening in the world of sports. And that's where I will be also seeking your input and seeking opinions on some of the issues that we shall be discussing in here. That's where we are going to be posing the discussions. And now heading straight to Kisoro, I want to assure you that the by-elections for Kisoro district will be held, that is on November 14th. That's according to information we are receiving from government. That's the Electoral Commission. Now the Electoral Commission has also released the roadmap. That's for the by-election of Kisoro Women Parliament, where we shall be seeing that the election is to be held, that is on November 14th. And now the by-election is also set to fill the vacant seat left by Sarah Mateke, the minister also who died in the Minister for Veteran Affairs, who actually died also earlier this month due to heart-related issues. And according to the Commission, the by-election will be held on 14th of November, and also updating the voter register for Kisoro district will begin, and also already began yesterday. And the roadmap also includes that already elections for councillors in electoral areas within the district where the vacancies already existed in there. That means we are going to be seeing elections not only for the woman MP, but of course for those other council positions that were vacant. So all in all, we are keeping our eyes on ground to see who exactly will be crowned the winner of the Kisoro district by-elections. And remember, the family already fronted the daughter, as they had earlier on also fronted the sister, but they had to go back and sit, and this time around they have fronted the daughter, who will be taking on the NRM flag to also already have what we call the by-elections. And at the end of the day, we are going to be seeing them also already aspiring with other people who may be from other political parties, who may also have interest in representing the people of Kisoro in there. But I want to assure you, I will be in position to also let you know who exactly will be declared the winner when the right time comes, because November 14th is actually not very far from now. We shall be seeing who will be crowned the winner, as Electoral Commission has already begun the processes of ensuring that these elections move smoothly in there. Now, during this period, the voters' register will be displayed at the polling stations, and parish tribunals will be convened, and the campaign period for the by-election will run from November 1st to November 12th, and that means they will be running also from November 1st. For now, those who will be campaigning will be doing it out of the roadmap. So I think at the end of the day, people have to now ensure that their voters are known. Who exactly, whoever would have interest, must now understand that November 14th is just around the corner. They must start now moving to funerals, because many times people want to see you at the funerals. That is when they will be knowing that you are indeed with them. People want to see you attend weddings. You have to contribute money also for these activities, and that is how today our elections have become costly, because as a council representative, as a parliament, people expect you to be everywhere. If they attend the funerals, let's say happening in a place, people expect you or your message to reach out in all these 10 funerals, and really it becomes quite tedious, where sometimes these cases become overwhelming. So I think all in all, we are looking forward to these elections, and I believe there's a lesson being sent, and that's where we are going to be leaving that discussion aside as we run in for yet another short commercial break, which is actually the last for this hour and for this week as well, because this show is going to be our last one for this week, and we shall be bouncing back on Monday for the final discussions of the KOKOLIRIKO Live for the September month, and thereafter we shall be opening up another chapter for another month. But really, as the question is, how is the month ending, and what are your plans, and what are the plans that you laid at the beginning of the year, and what have you so far achieved? Are the plans moving in your plans according to what you planned? Are they moving your wish or against your wish? That is where we need to solely ensure that we ask ourselves these questions, and that's where we are going to be leaving that discussion aside. And remember, the nomination process is ongoing, and I will be letting you know how and whoever will be nominated in there. Take a short commercial break. This is a KOKOLIRIKO Live show on West Nile TV with me, Farish Majid, and our final destination remains 9 o'clock.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to Star Times Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. Star Times Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from the short commercial break. In case you're just joining us right now, you're most welcome aboard. This is the KOKOLIRIKO Live show for this week, and we are summarizing with some of the stories that could make rounds also really locally and internationally, and I will be touching something small about what's happening in the world of sports. And remember, this week is actually going to be one of the biggest and the busiest weekends that is in the world of sports. because we are going to be seeing some of the members of parliament also really showcasing their talent. And I want to say right now, most of the team is now arriving, and they will be at Greenlight Stadium today. And we hope tomorrow the games also will be played very well in there. And we want to see the members of parliament also really showing us what they have. And the media team actually has a game that will be also going on with them. And I want to see how we are going to be beating the members of parliament in there, because if you look at this game, I want to see how the media team will actually play with the members of parliament. And I want to see how I will be seeing also our own also doing it, because we want to see how we shall be beating the members of parliament in that. I will be with the team at Greenlight Stadium from today, and I will be letting you know what exactly will be transpiring out of in there. But I want to assure you, so many issues going to arise out of there. But that is not also why we are going to be discussing it for now. Looking at some of the that happened elsewhere, there was outrage after video surfaces of a Chotara man viciously beating the wife. And this is also something which I want to say happened also in Chotara in there. Now the warning also happens, and that's why we did see also the man seriously beating the wife in there. The man in the name of Thomas Obo stormed also his wife, Agnes Kansime. That's also already like a 17th century man killing his wife. But that's where we are not also saying. Today you look at the issue of gender-based violence. It's actually happening, and it's a reality that gender-based violence indeed is happening within our society. But how can we ensure an end to gender-based violence? Looking at domestic violence, this is indeed domestic violence, but how do we avoid all these issues? It means, as families, let's ensure that we have time to sit and talk about some of the issues, but where we are seeing people beating each other like that, where we're seeing men beating, really not beating, even the word beating is very small, battering, it's really very much embarrassing. So I think at the end of the day, really, we have desist from tendencies of also taking the laws into our hands, because as you are doing, somebody will record you. And now this man was recorded beating the wife, and the video has gone viral. So now he has landed himself in prison. He has landed himself in jail, leaving this woman who also already at one time will be missing this man. Because many times gender-based violence is hard to understand. And the issue of domestic violence is really where you have to engage yourself with caution. Because the same people we are going to be seeing beating each other this morning, at night, they are singing. This is really quite embarrassing sometimes, where you have to also avoid poking your nose into people's affairs. But I want to say really the issue of domestic violence sometimes is hard to understand, because you see people insulting themselves during daytime, people beating each other, but at night or after a month, you're seeing babies coming out. So I think at the end of the day, it is really something we must also really have issues on. And as family members, as cultures, and as traditional leaders, we have to talk about the issue of gender-based violence. Much as we're having issues, let's ensure that we end the issues in the bedrooms. Let the issue not come out and surface in the public. We should not see you fighting. Because many times we have seen families who we see fighting like this, but at the end of the day we see them ending together. So I think at the end of the day, to avoid breaking the nose of your wives, to avoid knocking the eyes, let's avoid those issues. Let's avoid taking anger. So I think at the end of the day, that's where really sometimes we need to sort of talk about these issues. And this incident happened in Chotara, where the man identified in the names of Thomas Obo was really beating the wife seriously, as if he was a hunter killing a wild animal in 17th century India. That's where we were able to sort of see him also in the viral video. And many people have actually come out to sort of condemn the shocking incident, which also took place on July 13th, which has ignited also the widespread public outrage after video of the assault went viral in there. Now the Greater Masaka Regional Police spokesperson, in the names of Toa Kasi, has condemned the attack and voiced concerns over what we call the rising cases of gender-based violence, most especially domestic violence in the region. So I think there's more that we need to do, and also tell the people to also really desist from tendencies of domestic violence, because domestic violence is actually the biggest contributor to gender-based violence in India. Now, if I also noted that the growing frequency of such incidents also stressing the urgent need for community awareness and also stricter law enforcement to protect victims of domestic abuse. So I think sensitization to me is really quite key, because many times after putting these people behind bars, you see the women also really go to these officers and tell them that my husband was the one giving me salt. My husband was the one doing this. My husband was the one taking care of my responsibility. Please, can you release him and go back to family? That is the issue which is indeed happening in the office of the Child and Family Protection Unit of Uganda, the police, And the general office, these are issues and challenges already these entities are facing, because somebody comes very fast to report the husband, and then after a few days of arrest, the same person is again coming to plead for the release of the suspects. The issues of Aruba, all this culture is also sometimes contributing to also the issues of this also the instances happening. After arresting, people not necessarily expect a woman, maybe a relative, to drag another relative to police because they think it brings curses. So the issues of Aruba indeed is creating a lot of issues. First of all, it's allowing and sort of paving way for people to sort of go on with the violations of other people's rights. So I think these issues are all happening, and we therefore have to do something when it comes to addressing these issues, and that would also really be able to sort of address on some of these issues. And gender-based violence remains a key issue and a great contributor in our families. And today we look at issues of drug abuse. It's indeed happening and also contributing to domestic violence. Poverty is also another, and all this are causing a lot of issues in families today, because as a poor man, definitely your heart will become very bitter. And when a woman asks for salt, you're really angry. So I think poverty indeed is contributing, but as women, we should also really understand our husbands. If a husband comes back tired and says, honey, please, today I don't have money, pull that one which you have been saving, because sometimes we see women saving money. You see women in circles, but women are not working. Most of the housewives, you see them in circles, you see them on what we call community groups, but they're not working. So I think if a man comes and also comes back without money, please do not be offended. Pull out that money which you got from the savings, buy food. That would also help avoid challenges also in our families in there, because if you look at our families, most of the issues in relation to domestic violence have actually been contributed by poverty. So I think poverty is the greatest contributor when it comes to also these issues of domestic violence. So I think that's where we are going to be leaving the discussion aside with, as we get to move on some of the stories happening elsewhere. And remember, the story of the Katanga trial has also been talked about most often, and this is also another story we are still seeing happening, and this is where we are now seeing trial defense lawyers suggest police expert examined the wrong gun, and that is according to information we are seeing, because information when we had the information about this story, it is actually believed that the woman, the name of Molly Katanga, to connive with the family to actually murder a businessman whom they also wanted to take over property, whom they wanted to take over property of his property in there. But how do you murder your own? Because this case is now being investigated, and Molly Katanga, who has also concerned maintain her innocence, is accused of shooting her husband, that's Henry Katanga, on November 2nd, 2023 at their residence, that's in Chua Stu Road in Mbuya in there. Now she's jointly charged with their two daughters, that is Patricia Kakwanze and Martha Nkwazi, as accomplices solely in the crime against the mother. And that's where we also have one in the names of Charles Otai, a nurse and a family also domestic servant, Georgia Manyire, who have also joined the list of persons who are being investigated in there. Now, under cross-examination, that was also really continuing from previous adjournments. Mr. Mubiru also really faced intense scrutiny from defense attorney, that's Mark Dusman Kabega, who accused the police forensic also really expert of examining a wrong gun from different case, not also really alleged with murder weapon. Now, Mr. Kabega, who also really presented also sterling evidence, suggesting Mubiru also really analyzed the pistol with a different serial number, contradicting also the prosecution's claims in there. And that is where we are going to be following up on that matter. And at the end of the day, we hope justice will be prevailing in here. If at all the lady is innocent, she will be released. If at all she is guilty, together with the family and accomplices, then let them be released. But if at all they are found guilty, then keeping them in Luzira prison would actually be a better option, because murder is really not right. And that tells us how sometimes you don't have to trust your family members. You have to trust yourself alone. Because if we have now reached an extent where your wife and children can actually connive to end your life, it's quite embarrassing. Just over a property which you worked for. What does that mean, and what does that tell about our society? It means the values have already eroded. It means people's also really love that for human beings have also gone down, because you cannot kill somebody who has been entirely there for you just because you want to get over the property. And in most cases, these issues also arise over small matters, which would also actually be addressed. But the outcomes are always that people kill each other. So I think to avoid all these issues, let's embark on issues also of avoiding trust and also trusting people who are within our areas. And that is where we are going to leave the discussion aside and look at some of the stories happening elsewhere. Government plans to criminalize elders. That is another story we are seeing. And that's also one most story where Uganda moots law to also force young people to respect elders, and that's where today we are seeing very many people not respecting elders. Today you see a young person beating an elder. Now be worried that a new law is going to be coming, where the government is now planning to introduce a law that will ensure young people respect and take advice from older persons, according to Minister also which we are receiving in another Minister for Older Persons, Dominic Mafabi Giduru, said the law will ensure the restoration of values and respect for older persons in that have been eroded in there. Today, you know that many people are not having respect for elders. Those days when a young girl would give something to elders, the young girl will kneel down. But today you see a young girl opening up the mouth, shouting at an elder. It's really quite embarrassing, more so with these slave queens who do not have respect for elders. As a young person who marries you, you come back and start disrespecting my wife. You come back and start disrespecting my mother. So I think all these issues with the law, which I want to say I'm already in support of, must be addressed, because many slave queens, they do not allow their in-laws, mother-in-laws, to solely talk frequently with their children. And that's where we're seeing them also creating a lot of issues. And as we're getting in this weekend, for you who is also always looking at your mother-in-law with bad eyes, trust me, the law is going to be coming. And that's where we shall be dragged under the law, and the disrespect solely will be ended. In the now, Mr. Girudo also was releasing a statement that is in the commemoration of International Day for Older Persons, which was in October last, also tabled before Parliament, and the details and specifics of the provisions, like how this also will be enforced, we are unavailable yesterday, and the young person is only in Uganda is that one who is actually below the age of 18. So I think that law will be quite interesting, and to see how young people should be in position to respect elders. And in most cases, the women who also today are being violated. And for those who have not been respecting elders, the law also will be able to catch up with you, and definitely you may see yourself in prison to address on some of those issues in here. That's where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside. President Museveni says that he will crush exploited money lenders. Is another story that we are seeing, where the President Museveni also on Thursday this week, after vowed to act against what we call exploitative also the money lenders, accusing them of being impediments to Uganda development. And today you know that also very many people have lost a lot of monies, and people have lost property just because they borrowed money from also some of the money lenders at cost, and which cost they failed to refund back, leaving them at nothing but also already losing the property. So I think to avoid all that, that is where today we need to also avoid the issues of money lenders. The President made these remarks while commissioning the Karuma Dam yesterday, and at the end of the day, we want to see very many people really taking advantage of also the money lenders which are in place. And we want to ask the money lenders not to be exploitative in nature, to also really allow people borrow the monies at minimal interest rates. And that is where we are going to be living, because we do understand that, yes, indeed, to borrow money is business, and also to do the business of money lending is business, but we are saying let's be mindful of the borrowers as well, because you may be thinking about profits, not thinking about the person's welfare, and the person who is also to refund your money back in there, and that is also where we are going to be now leaving that story aside. And now to look at some of the story happening internationally. Transporters to Juba, DRC brace for higher costs after Karuma Bridge closure is another story we're seeing, where Uganda has closed Karuma Bridge, also a key arterial also connection between South Sudan and also DR Congo. Traffic also to pave way also for major repairs, plunging the region into significant transportation challenges, and this is also going to be affecting traders, most especially those from DRC and South Sudan, because if you look at Karuma, it's actually a direct gate pass to DRC and South Sudan and the entire northern Uganda, where people who travel to Aru have to pass via Karuma Bridge, they have to cross via Karuma Bridge. So I think government needs to do this work also within this period of time. Certainly, traders not to solely count a lot of losses in there. Now the bridge, according to Uganda's Minister for Transport and Works, General also Katuma Mala, who was closed due to safety concerns, amid the negative also really economic impact also really expected during the closure in the other storage side of the bridge, has also reached worrying level also after inspections by local and Japanese experts, discovered big cracks underneath the bridge, and that called for repairs for the bridge to be developed in there. And today, people have to be forced to use alternative merchant force route. This is for traders from Western Sub-region. And for travelers who are also really as well moving on this road, they have to pass via the national park, where they have also really been able to also really take more than also the period of time. Recently, I was also interacting with the drivers, more so for these vans who also transport into Kampala. They actually came out that also they're incurring a lot of money, and their profits have also already been reduced. So they are threatening to actually increase on the fares, because the route via Merchant Falls, has become longer compared to that via Karuma, and that's where they are now threatening to increase on the prices. But most of the buses have actually appreciated the development and say that this is the development that they want, because if you look at Karuma Bridge, we have had stories of where buses have plunged into that river. I remember a scenario of a contour bus company that actually fell in that river as we were young. And these are the stories that we used to hear that a bus had fallen in Karuma Bridge and Contour, where I had an uncle who was working at that bus company by then, actually could come up with stories of how the bus got that accident. So I think it's timely. We have also seen trailers plunging the river, and recently we also had small cars as well following also and falling in that river. So I think it's quite good, a good move for government to also develop the facility. And what many people are waiting to hear is also the story of how this also will be taking place, and maybe the period of time it will be taking also for the works to be done in there. And now, apart from Karuma, the construction of the new bridges on Kotanga River, also about 85 kilometers southwest of Kampala, a critical link also between south and west of Kampala, a critical link that's to also Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, Burundi, is also as well expected to be developed. And all this is to make sure that there's improvement that's already in the uptake also of goods and services in there. Now, Sudan's army launches push that's to retake ground the capital city. Is another story we're seeing right now, where Sudan's army launched artillery and air strikes in Sudan's capital on Thursday in the biggest operation to regain ground since also 17-month war with the rapid response forces witnesses, and also really have continued to go on in, and that is in the Sudan capital of Khartoum. We are seeing also really war going in there. That means there's also really some bit of gunshots currently going on in there, where they have also launched artillery to regain the capital from the rebels. And the push by the army, which lost control of most of the capital at the start of the conflict, came ahead also really of an address by its commander, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, at the United Nations General Assembly in the New York, where we have also seen now that war has returned back, and this is also where people are now fighting back to reclaim also the capital city in there. Now, Burhano said any peace efforts depend on the RSF laying down arms. He said, and armed also countries, we are backing the RSF with men, and that's where we are also seeing that also going on. But we are saying, all in all, we have to ensure the safety and peace in this area also, to make sure at least each and every person also really gets to enjoy the kind of peace. Today we have seen many Sudanese being forced into exile. Many of them are in Uganda, others in South Sudan, others in DRC after also really fleeing the war in there. But that is also not a reason as to why we must also celebrate, because if you look at war, definitely war is something which also really causes a lot of problems, and that's where we are going to be also leaving the discussion aside with. And in the next few minutes, we are going to be looking at what's happening in the world of sports. And if you look at world sports, definitely over the weekend, we are going to be seeing very many games. We have a run that's only for mothers, and which also will be going on. And that's also where we are going to be seeing also mothers actually being raised money. And that's where we are going to be seeing that. And on Saturday, we're also going to be seeing a lot of activities happening, where we have the freshers gathered at University. We have quite many activities all happening this weekend, and that is also where we are going to be seeing activities. Friendly is also happening, but at the Southern Uganda Premier League, we are going to be seeing a game on card also today, where we shall be seeing Wakiso Giants playing Mbale Heroes also in there. But yesterday we had the game between Lugazi and Viper Sports Club, which ended in a goalless draw in there. And that's also where we had Bull also losing also to Sports Club Villa by 2-1 in there. And that's where we are going to be seeing very many games happening. But how are we going to be celebrating your game, and how are you going to be celebrating your weekend? Which game do you want to watch over the weekend is actually what depends on you and your wish in there. Because if you look at all these games, are actually there to make sure at least you have something to watch. And yesterday we also had games as well in Europa League, where we had Fenerbahce playing what we call Union Gliktos, and the game ended 2-1 in favor of Fenerbahce. We had Malmo also playing with Rangers, where Rangers was able to beat Malmo FC by 2-0. Ajax was able to solely wash Besiktas by 4-0. Eintracht Frankfurt also did draw with Victoria Pleasant by 3-3. And FCSB did also lose, that is to RFS by 4-1 in there. And all these games also will be happening. And Lyon as well did beat Olympiacos by 2-0. Roma played a 1-1 draw with Atletico Club. And AS Praga did beat Maccabi Tel Aviv by 2-1. Tottenham Hotspur was able to sort of beat Karabag FK by 3-0. And today we shall be seeing games also happening elsewhere. This is in La Liga, where we shall be seeing Real Valladolid taking on Mallorca. And in Bundesliga, we shall be seeing Borussia Dortmund taking on Bochum. And all these games will be coming also, and more details to these games also still will be coming on our sports program of Visual Time. And remember, over the weekend, also Saturday, we shall be seeing games of the Premier League returning, where Newcastle United will be taking on Manchester City. Arsenal will be playing Leicester City, and Brentford will be taking on West Ham, and Chelsea FC will be taking on Brighton. Everton will be cancelling it out against also Crystal Palace. Nottingham Forest will be playing